Hello my friends, last week I finished building the model with extra parts that significantly enriched the appearance of the kit. Now it's time for painting and weathering. I started by gluing a nut into the hull to attach the screws and have a good grip for the upcoming work. From what I know, some people look at it with big eyes and are surprised that I work on the model this way, but I've been doing it for many years, even before many modeling channels appeared on YouTube. For me it's nothing new, just a proven way to make working on the model easier. I cleansed the entire set with model degreaser. Regardless of the material, this product works perfectly in preparing the surface for painting. I trust it so much that I often don't use a primer before the main painting. After a dozen or so seconds from cleaning, the model is ready to receive paint, because the liquid evaporates very quickly and leaves a matte surface without dirt created during work. To paint the camo, I used the real color set, which now is sold in the new version that is in plastic containers. This one is a complete set of paintings for painting vehicles from the later period of World War II. The basic colors of the Panzerwaffe are recreated here well enough to use them to certainly achieve the effect you will get. The base color was applied to all elements of the model using airbrush. These paints work perfectly in such use, so painting the entire model took me about 10 minutes. While leaving the hull and turret to dry well, I started painting the tires. Of course it's not black but dark grey, because tires look best in this shade. Even new ones are not perfectly black, so it's worth using a ready-made color that can be found in the real colors palette. The second color was green, which I decided to apply as medium-sized regular spots. The same will happen in a moment with the brown color, which will complement the tritonal camouflage. So, staying in the subject of painting, I read several times in the comments that you want me to show more of the painting or other works. I realize that maybe not everyone finds it captivating and educational, but it's easier to rewind something that's in the film than something that's not. So now a little more painting. Using this time, I would like to traditionally but also motivationally thank my great patrons, without whom it would be hard to keep it all in check. This group of people is my biggest motivator to do my job. You are the best, massive thanks guys! The people who helped me the most are Bulldog09, Christopher Obarski, Dan Dibua, Dan Majszak, Hans Zapp, Peter L and Steve Ankin. But the people listed just now are also my great patrons. Please don't forget that you can be one of them. And I realize it's not easy these days, but if you have a few bucks you could drop in my cup, that would be great. Thanks! Oh, and one more thing. Remember that if you join for free you probably won't be able to view my work. Better try the 7 days free trial, which will give you many more possibilities. After painting the camo, I started painting the details, and so at the beginning I took care of the proper preparation of exhausts. I decided to use some chipping to achieve the effect of a damaged coating on this element. Of course you can do it with chipping fluid, but I only thought about it after I painted the model with the basic color. However, even painting the whole thing this way doesn't look bad. I am pleased with the effect I have already achieved at this stage. In addition, I painted all the tools and small details. And I apologize for not showing it, but I simply forgot to record it because the work went very quickly. Additionally, I covered the whole thing with a dark brown filter to darken the light paint a bit. Before the next stage, I covered the entire model with glossy varnish to prepare the surfaces for transfers. To mark the vehicle I used a set of stickers from my own collection, but I also cut off a few from the set provided by the producer. Truth be told, producers aren't doing a good job looking at the vehicle markings. It's better to rely on your own reference materials or your own imagination. I treated all the stickers with a softening fluid which set them well in a glossy layer of varnish. I left the stickers to dry for now and started painting the metal elements. I started with a suitable metal primer and then used some black to paint the antennas. I applied the glossy varnish again to even out the surface on the transfers and at the same time to make it easier to apply the wash. Before I started working on the typical weathering, I covered the entire bottom of the model with wet mat so that it would be well connected to the diorama on which the model is. After making the mat, I glued the wheels so that the model could stand on its own feet. Before I started weathering, I decided to add a piece of rope to the front bumper. I often use the strings on which the labels are attached in new clothes. My wife brings me a handful of strings to choose from after every shopping trip for the children, so I never complain that I don't have enough of them. As a base color, I used the dark sand to wipe it with deck tan a moment later and then emphasize the weave with a wash. You've probably noticed that the model now has a stack on the rear of the vehicle. Sorry if you are upset that I didn't show it. Shit happens, but at the end of the film you'll see exactly what's there and how it's mounted. I was recently asked if I had any plans for a special episode about building, painting and weathering this part of my models. To tell you the truth, I have to think about it because it could be an interesting how to paint episode. But going back to the model, I did the entire wash on it using black-brown wash and thinner. This is not rocket science, more of a relaxing stage that can be extended by using wash to make streaks on vertical and dirty spots on horizontal surfaces. And this will be shown for a couple seconds. Painting weathering effects this way is easy and we can control them more than oil paints. Remember that oil paints change the shade of the base color. I painted a few scratches with a thin 0.1mm thick drawing pen. This is a great tool that is easy to control, but you have to remember that unprotected scratches are easy to wipe off. That's why it's worth covering the model with clear varnish. There's a small problem here because some varnishes dissolve the ink from the marker, so you have to test which one will protect your work best. For me the best was the Tamiya flat varnish, but despite everything it's best to apply it in very thin layers so that it dries quickly and has no chance of reacting with the ink. At this stage I reached for oil paints, which have been back in my workshop for some time. This time I used very dark colors to make the dirt. In this way I supplemented all the effects I made with the wash. You could even say that I enhanced them by adding oil paints, and the effects I achieved definitely add more shades to the model. After the oil paints dried, which happened very quickly, I started dusting the vehicle. I applied the pigment in various places, trying to use it to highlight some elements at the same time, creating a contrast in the amount of dirt I added. I also tried to apply it in different amounts. In some places I spread it on the surface, and in others I left a thicker layer, creating a texture which I will fix in a moment with a thinner, which will do the job of the pigment fixer. Of course, an accelerator is very helpful at this point, which will definitely speed up the work. It will also remove poorly fixed pigment from the model. For the final painting of the exhaust I used 3 weathering paints in a rusty shade. Generally I painted them using the wet on wet technique and tried to make the rust not dominant but rather appear here and there. This method seems to me the best and closer to reality than reddish exhaust with exaggerated colors. It's worth remembering that weathering paints are not as intense after drying, so you can easily use them, and even if at first it seems that the color is too strong, after drying it will be much weaker. I consider this an advantage and I have learned to work with it. So here is the final effect of playing with weathering paints, very subtle but realistic. I painted the fuel and greasy liquid leaks with oil paint, here and there I added some small splashes. Wet spots are often overlooked by modelers, but the truth is that almost every vehicle has such marks. I stained the ends of the exhaust with black pigment as simulation of fumes. Since I'm approaching the end of preparing the model, it's time to attach a thin wire for additional masking. I used a few pieces that I pulled out of a thicker bundle. It was previously soaked in the metal blackening fluid, so it's good enough now and doesn't need painting. I wrapped some of the edges with a soft pencil to give them a metallic look. Since the model will be standing in the water, I have to prepare it for this task. I painted all the wheels and fenders with a special product simulating dirty water. This was enough to create the right effect. Finally, I pigmented the antenna and mounted the figures in the turret. I didn't show their preparation because I don't brag about this part of my modeling. I don't consider myself a good figure painter, so I keep it mainly to show the final effect in the combination with the models and dioramas I have built. The model is ready to be mounted on a diorama. I'm very happy with the final look I managed to achieve. Right now you can see how it looks by visiting my Patreon. So if you had a good time watching it, please like, comment and subscribe to the channel for more videos with my projects. As I said before, you can also consider joining my Patreon group because your support is highly appreciated and helps me do what I do here at coldemonspl. Thanks to this I will try to give you some interesting content to keep you informed and entertained. In the next episode, I don't really know what will be presented, so stay tuned. That's all for today, see you next time, cheers!